For the past 30 years, Power Rangers has been a massive success for millions of fans, whether they grew up with the original series or if they're just getting started with Dino Fury. And for today's video, we thought about looking back at all the good, the bad, and what we expect to see in the future with the franchise. But this time I'm here with a legendary Ranger fan, that being Archer9234.
Hello, how's everyone doing?
And we got a lot to talk about with the series, but why don't you give us a bit of an update on how things have been, Archer?
Well, I just actually came back and started resuming my videos for my channel. I had been absent for about 3 years for now, but I am happy that I started doing top 10s again because that was the video series that everyone pretty much really wanted me to do after I had ended or moved on from the toy reviews. And I always wanted to keep doing it. It wasn't like I wanted to, but I'm glad that I'm back doing it again because it's very familiar territory where it's oh yeah, I remember all these little details that I always liked to point out in Power Rangers and stuff. So that's what I'm currently doing right now.
As for what I've been doing, I'm still cooking up some stuff behind the scenes for my projects, but if you guys want to check out Archer stuff, it's still Ranger Review, and yeah. I'm sure you have other channels as well that you'd like to let us know about?
Not really, that's really the main one. I just try to put everything there to keep it all contained so that people can just find everything in one spot.
Alright, so be sure to check out his stuff at the end of the video, or you can do it right away if you'd like to. You can check out his old stuff, his new stuff, everything you need is right there. But why don't we go back all the way to 1993 from your perspective of the history of the franchise?
Oh wow, that's a very long time ago. But luckily I do remember. I don't remember the very first MMPR episode I watched because when it first began, I didn't watch it from the very beginning. I was 7 years old. And it was my sister who actually originally watched the series in the beginning. But the first thing I do really remember was the Megazord transformation sequence. That was the very first thing I ever saw of MMPR. And I was as a kid, I was what is this? This weird robot show. Then all of a sudden, these people in these weird colored spandex popped out. And I was what's going on? And then my sister tried to tell me what it's basically about and it's these characters and blah, 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 blah. And so that's how I began watching Power Rangers from the very beginning. And it was just for many, many years. I watched it for so many years in a row. And as you watch a TV series, it has its ups and downs. And there was a point where it slowed down and you lose interest. But then sometimes later on, you get lucky and another spark comes back and you continue on watching the series. That's kind of been how I've always viewed Power Rangers. Because there's always a good season, there's always a bad season, but overall, for some reason, it always pulled me back, even when it went really low in quality. There was one bit of it, was that's still good about the series, and that's the reason why I, started focusing on it, and it kind of delved into the whole aspect of it being a Japanese property. In the beginning, and in those days, really didn't have the internet and we really didn't know what was going on. But even back when we were watching MMPR, things were very obviously noticeable watching the footage. And for example, I think it was my sister who pointed out it was a Japanese show. And it wasn't the obvious of Rita having weird lip syncs and whatnot. It was, she noticed the Power Morphers just said Kyoryu Sentai Zyuranger on the bottom. She's that doesn't make any sense. Why doesn't it say Power Rangers? But it was very difficult to figure out what the show was that it was based on because there was really no real info that was brought over here for many, many years. So I think it built up the mystery of what was this show originally about? And how did they combine all the footage? And I think that's what made it very interesting to me. It's the aspect of melding two different things that are vastly different, but somehow it works. And that doesn't happen in a lot of cases. I think that's what makes Power Rangers very unique.
I agree with that. Especially even a lot of other fans who are growing in the internet in the 2000s, at least from my perspective, it was interesting to look back and see just how much would be taken from Sentai, how much would be Captain, and in addition to stuff how much has changed. Especially when you're localizing something, because it's not just a case of an anime where you're dubbing over certain names or like puns and all that. It's mostly just replacing actors, make it look like they were the ones that made it. And as for my experience with Power Rangers when I was younger, I grew up with it back when Disney had the series, which was sort of like similar to when fans grew up with MMPR. You know, it felt like a fresh start. Even though I had like a Wild Force juice bottle, Time Force coloring book, a Lightspeed Rescue McDonald's figure, the Pink Ranger, and a non-transforming Lost Galaxy Megazord before then. Or was it during? I'm not sure, but it was back when the show was on ABC Kids, aka there's also ABC Family, and Toon Disney / Jetix. That was like a year after I got into Spider-Man with the Sam Raimi movie, and I was saying to myself, oh wow, these guys are like Spider-Man, except there's 3 of them, and they have a giant robot. And even though I didn't have any of the merchandise, apart from me getting like the Red Ranger with the Battleized armor, and my younger brother getting like the Crimson Ranger from the Disney store, R.I.P. that Disney store that got closed down at Fort City. But it was still like something that I look back on with nostalgia because, like being a kid in the different decades, you know, you get either different experiences with technology or different seasons, but it was still similar in a way because we were experiencing a new show that captivated us with its characters, and it kind of made us curious as to how they made everything behind the scenes.
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah, and I guess it's not too different from how things were in terms of like us being exposed to similar like shows. I mean, kids from the 90s, in addition to Power Rangers, probably grew up with anime like Knights of the Zodiac, KK, Saint Seiya, Dragon Ball, Sailor Moon, and there's also Pokemon in between, you know, the 90s and 2000s. Whereas 2000s kids had like Digimon, Beyblade, Yu-Gi-Oh, and depending on how lucky you are, you might have seen stuff on Toonami, like maybe you probably saw bits of Evangelion or Inuyasha on Toonami.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think it didn't really matter what era that you started watching Power Rangers because there's always that familiarity, no matter where you started, whether it was from the 90s, the 2000s, or even the 2010s. It's like, it's always there to be cool. And I think that's what drives everyone that enjoys it, because there's always a small aspect. Like, you may love sci-fi and there's this giant robot. You may like, you know, giant robots in general, and you're like, it has that. But then you also have superheroes, but not the traditional superheroes. They're usually, you know, your regular dude that comes out of nowhere. And or I think one of the more unique things that Power Rangers brought to superheroes is that they don't have to have a superpower. They have the ability to turn the power on and off and be hidden in plain sight. Where, yeah, there's superheroes that can do that, like Iron Man and Batman, but it's like they don't really never show the aspect of like it being a young person. It's usually an older person, where Power Rangers kind of brought that element in, which like continued that aspect of like, if you were a 90s kid and you love Batman, Power Rangers was there too, and you can both appreciate the two different shows because they have very similar aspects, but they don't feel the same. I think that was what the key thing was. It hit at the right point of like so many different popular bits, like the explosion of like Jurassic Park and cool CGI, and it was just perfect timing that MMPR's theme was dinosaurs, so that worked out. And then you had Batman the Animated Series, X-Men, quality shows of those 90s where it was sandwiched in. Yeah, Power Rangers can be extremely corny, but it fit in with that block, and I think that's what kept it alive versus like other shows. While many people love VR Troopers and all those other side series, I like them too, but it's probably what kept Power Rangers alive because it worked within that box. And it was unique enough to keep it going. And then what helps more, I think, is the good call of them refreshing the cast, because probably a lot of people don't like it when they decided to switch over to that routine where MMPR all the way to space and then that was it. I thought it was really good to do that, because if you're always going to use the same characters, it does get tiresome, and that's where the good cast switching it in helps. But then again, it also has that risk of, well, what if we have a really great cast that can continue on for another season, or what if you run into a cast that's just completely bad and abysmal? So that's the pros and cons that Power Rangers brings, which I think that's one aspect of why it stays for so long.
Yeah, and it's funny, you kind of mentioned VR Troopers. I remember seeing that as a promotion for one of the MMPR VHS tapes I still have, Goldar's Vice Versa. And for some reason, Canada had VHS I once had, not the movie, the animated special. There was a promo for Big Bad Beetleborgs, but
yeah.
Another good point. Mentioning the fact that it's always good to see them refresh casts. Sentai does that too, of course, but I feel like whereas Sentai just does it a yearly routine, it's like, okay, guys, new toys, new show, new baddies. Here it's always a case of like, all right, these guys have done their adventures. Now they're gonna pass on the mantle to the next team, and because you never know how much of a threat there'll be next time after the last season. And hey, it's always nice that we get to see like them jump in time every once in a while, or in this case, since RPM, dimensions.
Yeah, it gives that opportunity of storytelling, because like if we had stuck with, say, the MMPR cast for 30 years, we would have never got things like RPM or Mystic Force, because we would have had the theme elements of Maji Ranger and whatnot, but imagine Vita just being Kim for 20 plus years at that point. It would be like you couldn't do so many things with a character like that. You would be like, you couldn't have the Emporium. Udana would be virtually like redundant, because their history, their backstory would be, they'd be so like used to all this, they would know everything. You wouldn't need a mentor like Udana, so she would not exist. Claire would not exist. So you need that refresh to introduce new characters, whether good or bad, to make the show feel new, interesting, or potentially a really great story that can come out of it. Because a lot of people complain that RPM was very different from PR. I always say it still has the core elements that PR needed: some goofiness, action, some drama. Yeah, you can complain that they recycled the whole Corone, Andros elements. That happens in PR. The show runs for so many years, you will recycle elements. You really can't avoid it. But it was so unique enough where we completely ignored the oddities of Goanger, like the weird Zord designs. And that's what I loved also about PR, because you can pull like one little element from the Sentai, from a character, that like you would never think that would work as a character trait that can work in PR, but somehow they do it. Like, I'll bring up like Aubrey Killer in of Ranger. That type of character you just could not do in PR for either standards and practices, or just in general, you couldn't do that type of character here. But they just took one thing from Aubrey Killer, his weapon, and him drawing in the air, and they created Trench from that. Just that little bit created a full character's backstory out of it. That's what I loved about Power Rangers. You don't have to like always just copy the Sentai, and you could just create a character from nowhere.
Yeah, and I also like how you mentioned how RPM does its own like little details and explains some stuff. You don't have to do exactly everything that Sentai did, but at least give your own identity to what's the stuff behind it, instead of just being like, oh, there's a simple explanation behind that, Jake.
Oh, that infamous.
Yeah. Like, you can do it. I know there's ways to like explain stuff without being super faithful. And
yeah, like Power Rangers does give you a lot of leeway into explaining things. You don't have to be like, I have to know 600 episodes of Power Rangers to understand this little thing. You don't. You can just be like, this is the basic premise from this series universe. Just extrapolate it, and then you can build on it.
Yeah, that's how it works. And since speaking of Sentai, like, what was the first season that got you aware of Super Sentai, and how did you feel about it?
Oh, that in the 90s, it was very difficult to find out any information about Super Sentai, because at the time it was just like the internet was just too very simple. We could not really watch videos. But we knew about it because there were fan websites that were popping up in the mid to late 90s where they were starting to talk about Zeo was from this series called O Ranger, and we got the basic plots. But like the very first Sentai that I ever saw was actually from various people in the 90s who bootlegged the VHS tapes from Japan. No subtitles, because no one could do it back then. And we just got the various seasons. I remember we had gotten Jew Ranger, O Ranger, Mega Ranger, Ginga Man.
Yeah, I can see that too about, like, you know, people bootlegging stuff in the past and trying to get the most out of what was available in markets. I mean, I didn't really have that where I grew up in because I was in Chicago. Like, close I could get would just be VHS tapes of older movies and all that. In addition, you know, like pirated movies that came out. But I know that because places like New York and San Francisco would be in, you know, like near the oceans, it was much easier to get bootlegged stuff. And I'm positive that was also something that MMPR Toys had mentioned in one of his videos, living in the past.
And only toy that I had for Power Rangers for many years. The first Zord I ever got, which is why it's the very first episode of Ranger Review, was the re-release of the Super Zeo Megazord. For all those years, from MMPR to Lost Galaxy, I never hardly owned anything from PR, and it was not just because I didn't want it. It was just, you know, it was the 90s, everything was expensive, so we couldn't really get those things. So I really didn't collect the stuff back then, but it was fairly easy to get them because I would always see PR stuff in like any store, like the big stores, even little stores that are on the side. I remember when I was like 8 or 9, I saw the Turbo Megazord in a window of a mom and pop store, like in the middle of Manhattan. I was just like, it's there. That's how like popular Power Rangers was, because you could just stick it in the window and, you know, there would be a kid around who would want it.
Yeah, similar to like how it's been for where I lived. Like, you know, we still mostly had like toy shops, KB Toys, Toys R Us, Target, Walmart, Kmart back then as well. I vaguely remember seeing like a mint-in-box Thundersource Megazord at a flea market around the same time it came out. I didn't collect much stuff either when I was younger because we were poor back then. But I will say that at the very least, I did get a Delta Squad Megazord, which is still with me despite it being beat up. And around the same Christmas, I got myself Omega Max and Titan Megazord, which was pretty awesome. It got me into like the next season as well. But it was still like a time period where you could get merchandise no problem. In contrast to nowadays, where you just used to like getting stuff online and distribution isn't great, and you know, you kind of mentioned stuff being expensive back then, and it was kind of true. I mean, we were both kids when we first got into PR, but I feel like it's gotten worse now due to the economy, combined with the fact that like,
You're back.
Yeah, I feel like it's kind of gotten worse with the economy due to like everything that's been going on with our leaders, as well as the fact that you know, I mean, I don't want to be like an Hasbro bad type of person, but like that Cosmic Fury Megazord set being cost at the price of $70 is not worth it compared to the other sets we got from Dino Fury.
Oh, honestly, no. Like, yeah, like you said, you don't want to like insult Hasbro because, you know, they are a good company in general, but you can clearly see they rose the prices of their products, but then the quality is still not there. Especially when you compare it to the Japanese version. Now, don't get me wrong, Hasbro has done improvements in certain.
Oh my god, this PC.
Surprising, because back when Bandai was doing but then it eventually it devolved kind of basically back to where Bandai was at the end of their run in Ninja Steel, where it's just like, we're paying $70 for this Megazord, which is virtually the same price as the Japanese version, but it's not as good. So, like, why did we jump from from what was Dino Fury season 1 to now Cosmic Fury, and this drastic increase, but there's no real visual thing of showing that. So I don't, like, for me, I don't have a problem paying a higher price for a really good looking Zord figure, whatever, but it has to actually look it. If it doesn't, then it's just like, what am I paying for?
Yeah. Honestly, like, I was never a big Kireno guy myself, like, hot take, but, like, either, at least the Japanese version is more worth the price, but I just don't feel, like, invested in getting either version, so, no Cosmic Fury merchandise for me, I guess.
Yeah, that's ironically happened to me too. It's a combination of, you know, the way everything has evolved, where you're forced to buy everything online, or like Hasbro's not doing a great job in a lot of areas, because like there's like, I had a friend of mine who bought the helmets and they came scratched, so you have these poor stories about them, and you see the weird issues with the arms missing, or the wrong ones, or the wrong boots are put in, or the worst one, like SPD Yellow's Morphers upside down. It's like, how do these quality mistakes happen? Like, where does it break down? Like, what's going on?
Yeah.
So it's just like, and you know me, I always try to get the dinosaur seasons. I've always just been like that. It's like certain themes, I'm like, I want this, I want this. I don't really care if the season's bad. I just love the design. And normally I would get every single dinosaur season. And Dino Fury, I don't want it. It's just weird. It's the first time that ever happened to me where I said I just don't want it. And it's not even because like all the toys are poor. It's just for some reason something happened between Dino Charge and now, that I just lost the will to want those now, which is unfortunate.
It's kind of opposite for me, whereas like where I started buying more PR merch like full on since Beast Morph first got involved. But I feel like we're getting way ahead of that sort of thing, because we kind of jumped from like prices and then talking about Hasbro currently. But yeah, bottom line, things were expensive back then, but not as bad as they are today.
Yeah, no. I mean, back when the 90s was, oh yeah, don't get me wrong, the Megazord, when it was in the 90s, when it first came out, especially if you wanted to look for the black and gold edition, oh, it was so difficult to get anything because it was either always gone, stores didn't stock them correctly. Like, it was one of my constant things that I had to deal with when I was young. Like, I couldn't get things, but like I was always a stickler to the giant Zords. I loved the carrier Zords, all the big stuff, because it kind of finishes the combination features. So I always wanted Titanus. You could never find it. It was just never in a store. You would find Megazord, you could potentially find Dragon Zord, you found all the figures and the Morpher and the gun and the whatnot. But like Titanus, all those large ones, it's just like, we always had a problem. And then when you did find it, and you're like, oh my god, it costs so much money.
Yeah, but probably not as bad as it would nowadays, thanks to aftermarket prices, and if we were to like adjust for inflation and all that.
Yeah, it's that. What was the Lion Fortress Zord from Ninja Steel? They were like, on the box, it was touting the largest Zord ever made, and I was like, it looks like crap. It's just red. There's no detail. I was like, why? Okay, for starters, as for kid, an adult would see the price and be like, I'm not paying for that. And then also space, like, where do we put it? And then for a collector, it's not detailed. It's all this plastic, but it's not detailed. Why would I want it?
Yeah, I feel like the Delta Command is the more definitive, like, big Zord to get, at least in terms of like the giants.
Yes.
Regardless
and even
of
that
any
still
version.
Suffered in certain areas.
Yeah, I feel like either version is good. Like, Japanese version, if you want more details. US version, because, hey, it's still the same mold. But
yeah, you had that argument.
Yeah. The next thing I wanted to bring up was, like, discussing your experiences with the fandom. Like, what was it like interacting with other Power Rangers fans?
For the most part, I think everyone's, like, been generally fine. I think people enjoy the series in so many different ways. Like, you can join the series from this season or that season. Like, oh yeah, I never saw MMPR, but I started watching it from Lightspeed Rescue, and I'm like, man, it's a good season to start on. Because like, even though there are seasons that I don't like, Operation Overdrive, everyone starts out with a season, and usually whenever they start out with a season, it's their favorite one because it's the very first thing that they ever saw. So usually the flaws you can ignore, but it depends on the person. Some people are more critical, like me. I can still point out the flaws from MMPR, even though I enjoy it. But I'll be like, no, it has this flaw. This was stupid. That was dumb. But for the most part, the fandom as a whole, people enjoy the series. People want more out of the series, and understandable. The series has been going on for so many years, and for many people have seen it since the beginning to present. So it's just like you always want to see it do better. It's kind of like your brother or sister, where it's just like they're young and you always want them to become better, get good jobs, be successful. It's kind of like that. You see the series go for so many years and it had like these good moments, and you just want to see it better. So I think that's why fans really like fixate on either a specific season or elements from it, because you just want it to be a good product.
Yeah. Like, I know there's been some people that kind of complain about the fandom of late, but I will say that I wanted to see this franchise do more than what it already has. Like, we've already seen him do so much with, the spandex and the stock footage. So I'm up for the reboot idea that Hasbro's doing for Power Rangers. I just have like a few hopes for it. Not like, oh, they have to do it like this, or I'm not going to support it. What I want to see them do is just like embrace the idea and give attention to it, basically.
Yeah, I agree. I think, like, I don't really worry about it in general. It's just that because, it's a rumor, we don't know everything because they're still keeping everything under wraps. If it's a 100% full, like, Power Rangers is going to be all original, that has to give the company a lot of responsibility, because they no longer can rely on designs, footage. That means they have to create virtually everything from sets, the suits themselves, and then the biggest thing is the Megazord fights and everything, whether it's going to be CG only or it's going to be a mixture of the two like it always has been. It's going to be a big responsibility, and I don't know if they're going to be ready to do it. That's the thing that I worry the most, because we've had teams for many years from the US and New Zealand work on the show, but one area that we really don't deal with is the Zord fights. And that's a very complicated beast to look good, because it's extremely easy to look really bad if done wrong.
Yeah. That's the only concern I have in terms of like visual presentation. But everything else, like suit designs, I wouldn't mind if they made them sort of like the Mega Mode suits from Samurai. Where it does look kind of armored, but it's not entirely CGI reliant. And I also wouldn't mind if if they had like certain team colored representations, or if they had like a female Red Ranger. But my biggest concern though is the lack of attention put towards it. I know of late there is the writer's strike that's going on, so they can't really promote Cosmic Fury that much.
Right, yeah, unfortunately.
But once it's over, I genuinely hope that they put as much attention to it as they do their average movie or TV show. Because, I want them to basically put up commercials, posters, meet and greets with the mascots. Like how they did that back then with when there used to be Toys R Us in Times Square, and they'd have, Elmo or SpongeBob waving hi.
Oh yes, yeah, I remember those. Yeah, they could do those things.
Yeah, do stuff like that. Maybe don't go too much where it just kind of makes it seem a bit annoying, but do a better promotion than what we got at the 2017 movie, where it just felt like it was, where it was there, but didn't feel like it really was there. Because relying on social media is not going to always work out that way.
No, it's like the cheapest option, and it's like the easiest one to either ignore or avoid. So it's like I don't even look at it that often either, so I could easily miss an announcement of like when they show that really simple poster of Cosmic Fury with the hand holding the whatever they're gonna call the spheres. I didn't even know that came out, and I was like, wait, there was an advertisement for the show already, and it's just like, oh, I didn't even know. So yeah, the show does need a better way of exposure because it does lack. Like, it felt like we were getting somewhere when Once and Always was coming out.
Yeah,
it wasn't great, and like all of a sudden after that came out, it just died, and I was just like, that doesn't really help.
Honestly, like if I were Hasbro in the situation, I'd put more promotion towards it. Like make commercials of it, say only on Netflix, or maybe make a limited theatrical run. Collaborate with Bad in the Sun, or the people that worked with JDF before his passing to make like a 2-in-1 promotion for a limited theatrical release of Once and Always and Legend of the White Dragon.
Yeah, you could do something like that, and it would help to a degree.
Yeah,
and especially like we don't know the details, but it's rumored that David Yost filmed something for Cosmic Fury that should be used in some way to like say, this is still a continuation of that story. So it's like, oh yeah, we have 10 extra episodes. And then I think the biggest issue the biggest hurdle they should get over is the way everyone reacted to the suits that they designed. Yeah, and I'm always saying, like, wait until we see it in the show before you give your final judgment, because a lot of costumes and stuff look like crap when they're just photographed. But because we don't really see like a full-on trailer of the episodes, we still don't know how they look. And I think they really should be like, okay, we gotta sell those costumes that fans are like, okay, good, thank God we were wrong, it looks fine. And then I think because they're doing something original, and they're going into space, and they're doing all these weird, it's like, you'd think that would be perfect for an advertisement. It's like, we're doing something unique. We're no longer, we're using the Japanese footage, but twisting it in a different way. It's like, why not like show that off? Use like all these, show the weapons, show this. We design, like, showcase that you can do this good, and you don't have to rely so much on Japanese material.
That's what I want to see for the promotion moving forward. Hell, I'd go a step further and have like MMPR Red passing the mantle towards this new Red Ranger. Kind of like a seal of approval from the past.
I think that's probably what Billy will do in the episodes. He'll be there as be like, yeah, we're a part of this universe still, but we were like, okay, we've seen what you've done. You're doing good. Like how Forever Red handled it. In that very simple way. It's just like, Jason interacted with Cole, and like, yeah, you're a good Red Ranger, you're fine, your show's fine, let's get to it. It's like, that's all you really need. That could have been like an exclusive advertisement commercial where you had David Yost be in that commercial, be with those characters, and then go off into the story.
Yeah. Because relying on social media and fan sites to talk about nerd culture isn't enough. I mean, I know TV isn't used as much, but we gotta at least spread some word to those that aren't always on Twitter or Facebook.
Yeah, I can't remember. Like, the last time I ever saw an advertisement for PR was honestly the 2017 movie, because it was, it had posters, and it was on, buses and stuff. That was it. We've never had like any advertisement of a season of PR anywhere like that. And the contrast when you see a Super Sentai release in Japan, they get a press conference, the actors come in and they just talk about their roles and their characters. What could you expect? They get tons and tons of promotion from either the previous season to the present season, or whenever they showcase them in the movies. Like, they understand exactly how to do it, but like PR for some reason doesn't try something. I'm not saying, you can do what Japan does, because it's not that big compared to what Japan does, but do something to show that it's still alive.
Yeah. like maybe do like a smaller scale way of how they promoted the hub, but hopefully not as bad as how the hub turned out before it reverted back to Discovery.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember like even seeing a poster of that somehow in my elementary school in the music room. You know, just seeing like promo art depicting some pony or pound puppy. But what struck me the most was a poster of what was Prime's design in that series, Transformers Prime.
Yeah, Transformers Prime. Yeah.
Yeah, and that was like hot off the heels of the first two movies, and I was thinking to myself, oh crap, we're getting a new Transformers show, and it's like a mix between two other versions that I was already a fan of, and that got me excited.
Yeah, I still think Transformers Prime would be rated, like for me, it's rated just below Beast Wars. It's, to me, I think that's like they actually figured out how to do a good US-based Transformers series where you had Peter Cullen, Frank Welker come back to play their original roles in a new version, but it felt like we're going to take what Beast Wars evolved Transformers into and put that on top, and it worked really well. And like there hasn't been a Transformers series since Prime that I think got the thing right, perfect, where it felt like, wow, this is what Transformers should be.
Yeah, like, I mean, I remember looking back with one of my friends about Earthspark, and I kind of forgot about it, in fact, outside of seeing the occasional toy aisle, but since we're still talking about promotion, like, I really hope that, you know, the next Power Ranger series from Hasbro, the reboot, gets promoted by Hasbro itself, rather than the attention accidentally coming from a news press or a news conference or like TV.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want Fox News or ABC 7 or whatever to be like, oh, like, this series is woke, or it's promoting this or that. Or it's like, oh, like, this series is is, like, very racist and all that. Like, I don't want that to be the way the series gets more attention from, you know, like...
any negative elements, yeah.
Regardless of the political side, because it's all the same bird, and I don't want Power Rangers to get that, like, affection, or, like, it's, like... or that kind of like attention the same way Artspark did.
Right.
So hopefully Hasbro does a better job of promotion, even if the series, regardless if it's good or bad or not, gets as much attention as it deserves.
Well, yeah, you should always give something new a chance. There's a difference from, like, say, when Disney first got the series and Ninja Storm was coming out. It's their first time go. You would want to heavily promote it versus like when, Disney was doing RPM out of basically forced to do it, so they didn't really care about it. There's a difference, and I hope they it's brand new. They showcase like this is all new, all original, something unique, but also don't like go so far where it insults like the previous seasons, where it's just like. You don't want it to feel like, oh yeah, we're making everything, it's a fully U.S. show, and then like insult, like, oh yeah, we don't care about the Japanese aspects of it. Like that shouldn't happen either, because then you'll just annoy people who actually would like it to continue using the Japanese footage over that.
Yeah, like don't insult Sentai because that helped you in the first place. I mean, I know there's like a lot of purists that might get poked fun of, but like don't like shit on Sentai too much. Or past seasons in general, like, because I don't want people to end up being like, oh, we're going to mock him in PR because it was always crappy. We're going to do it our way. Kind of like how a lot of comic writers do nowadays.
Yeah, it's just like, you don't need to. It's just like, you're just moving on to something new, and you're going to hope it works. Now, like, I don't have a problem with them abandoning the Japanese footage because, it does give a lot of leeway. You can do a ton of stuff. It's just, will Hasbro take advantage of that or not? That's the question. Will it be like, oh, it's a brand new thing, but then they end up it kind of falls flat, and they end up just doing the exact same thing that they've always been doing and making it pointless? I hope that doesn't happen.
And if we still do like Sentai adaptations, I wouldn't mind if they're like either for an animated series, for kids still, or if it was going to be still part of like the Boom Studios where they adapt stuff that hasn't been done yet. Kind of like as a tribute to long-term fans.
Yeah, I understand. Like, because like the Boom Comics would, you know, explain what like Super Mega Force refused to explain, or they brought in the costumes from the pre-Jew Ranger seasons, and everyone was like, "What the hell's this?" So at least Boom tried to like. I mean, they were never going to be 100% like perfect in their explanations, but at least they tried. Unlike the series, where it was just like, you didn't need to do it. You caused the complication for no reason.
Thanks, Gosei.
Yes, it's why I think Super Mega Force failed so hard, is because we had high expectations from Gokaider, obviously, and I was not expecting that at all. I was like, I know how PR is. It's a low budget show. They're not going to spend so much money on bringing back a ton of actors. We may get people here and there for one episode or two episodes, and I would be totally fine with that. What I was not expecting them to do is take suits that never existed and put it in US filmed material and basically waste episodes. Then on top of it, I think the thing that probably burned everyone the most, like there were certain seasons that were like not even showcased. Like Lightspeed Rescue was never used as a power-up. And I'm like, there were episodes that had those suits in, but you chose to use footage from episodes that had suits that no one cared about. Like I'm always curious on how things like that happen, because to me, from a person from outside, like it makes no sense how things like that happen. It just felt more like, Zakor's, he loves Sentai. I love Sentai, but I would never think that way if I was in his shoes. I'd be like, I'm not going to use any of the pre-Jew Ranger suits. There's no connection to the audience for those. We only have a connection from Jew Ranger and on. And of course, we have now missing and omitted seasons because of, they didn't want to adapt Tokuger for X reason. And so, like, you build that animosity with people and fans, like, oh, they did this bad, they skipped over Tokuger, so you got those fans annoyed. So it's kind of like a lot of compounding issues, which is, I think, what drives a lot of fans into those most, like, really negative aspects, where, like, people are now yelling on Twitter at producers, and I'm like, yeah, I feel like the same way, where, like, oh yeah, this season was bad, it's crap, it's garbage, but I won't go past a certain line where it's like, I'm not going to insult producers, actors, especially actors, because they're just there to act. So
yeah,
it's just like, I think that's where the negative aspects all came from. It was just so many seasons of bad, just compounded disappointment after disappointment, which just made everyone, like, any one little mistake, it just made someone rage. Like, I mean, I have things here and there I hate, but to me, it's just like, okay, they did it, fine, I'm moving on. I don't want to, like, start complaining about the something really stupid.
Yeah. I just kind of feel that's sort of like why Hasbro wants to do a fresh start, so they don't have to deal with a lot of baggage from past lore. And
yeah,
whatever they do, I hope they succeed in it. I just hope that they do a good job and they don't alienate fans even more.
I think that's like the biggest thing. Is just be like, we're just making something new. I hope you enjoy it, and that's it.
Yeah. As for fans doing stuff beyond just like complaining, I know there are fan projects out there that involve stuff like, fan films. Every once in a while, there's like a fan game. What kind of fan project would you like to work on?
Oh, that's a hard question. It's just like, yeah, I know, like, fans, you have like the ability to do anything in a franchise, where, like, oh yeah, it's a big responsibility. So it's not like I wouldn't want to do it. It's just like, oh, like, I can do a lot of things. But then I also see a lot of those fan films that go so far in like a serious direction, where it's just like, I think if I had a choice to make a fan film based on PR, I would try to find the limits of what's a good dramatic point where PR works while also keeping that corny aspect that everyone enjoys seeing, because that's like one of the biggest things with PR. Like everyone says like, oh no, we can't have the corny anymore, it's too stupid. It's just like, no, that's a key element of PR. So I would really love to find like a good balance between the two, like what is too far and what is not too far.
I like to work on a project based around the A Squad Rangers before they became evil.
True, yeah, that does bring you up. That does give you open like to stories like that we never seen, like any little tidbit like Zordon in passing, or like you said, A Squad, because before they became evil, they had to be good people. They would not have been picked from SPD. So you can do a slew of different types of stories, and then reach up to the point of like, why did Charlie and everyone else turn? Like, what was the real reason?
I had like an idea where essentially they were kind of noticing how B Squad was sort of depicted as like the main team from there, so they felt like they didn't want to be with these like not lower tier, because I think of like low tier god, but like the second rate Rangers as people that could probably like replace them. So they just decided, you know what, we're gonna be with our own guys from now on. We're gonna be a Grum.
Yeah, like there's a lot of directions you can go to, especially like with Grum, because the one thing about Power Rangers lacks sometimes is they bring in these huge like alien forces, but we never really get to delve into them. Grum came in and like, oh yeah, he's the big baddie with the see-through head. Okay, do we really know anything about him? No. So like, missed villain opportunity. A lot of villains tend to not get fleshed out enough, where it's just like, oh, I understand his like reasons or where he's from, because like I think Power Rangers is really cool when it comes to like bringing in alien forces, whether good or bad, and I'd love to see them explored more. But they bring in this grandiose villain, and it's just like what happened to like the whole background with Mesogog? Like everyone always says Mesogog or Rancic are one of the best villains of the show because they give us backstory, but many recent villains, they get nothing, and it's kind of a disappointment.
The closest one would probably be just like Venjix, because we saw him as Evox and Beast Morphers, but that's only because he's a already existing character that turned out to be such. So he kind of gets a pass.
It's a cheat.
Yeah.
It's a cheat in a way, because we took an existing character that we already established 10 years roughly ago, and we paid it off, which thank you that they did. I'm glad they did, because I was like, are we ever going to pay off RPM's ending? Because in a lot of PR cases, they don't care to explain, like, this character left, or what is this character doing? So I was like, okay, thank you. But yeah, PR has a lot of stuff they can do. Like, I would love for them to take a character from a past season that didn't really have much to his background, and then bring a character, create a new character. Like, I always wanted to know Magna Defender, his planet's origins. I'd love to have a character from his planet become a new Ranger, and then it would fill in his backstory that we really didn't get past his personal family. And then it would also enhance a new character that would come in without violating hardly anything, because we don't really know anything about Magna Defender's planet. We never really, we don't do they have something under their armor? Are they like Tali from Mass Effect? Things like that. Like, you can talk of, like, that's the character that you can come out of just a little detail.
Yeah, so Boom Studios, Fanworks guys and gals, you know what to do. I'll be working on my A Squad script at some point. Kind of make it where Grum essentially like sees the A Squad team and slowly convinces them to join him, while also causing havoc elsewhere.
Kind of like the Emperor to Darth Vader.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which makes sense, because Emperor Grum,
I see that happening.
Yeah. Um.
Like, I think like a cool prequel story idea, like I would like to see as a fan film, like Udana. Like, how did that happen? Liambo, like them. Like we got the like beginning when they were very young, where Nick, got separated by them. We have that element, and then the present time. Like, what happened in between? Like, how did Udana create her mystic powers? Because yeah, in Mystic Force they had their magical powers, but we saw the original 5 warriors, and then they of course evolved into the Mystic Rangers that we saw. But we never saw like where does Udana's powers come from? Like things like that. That's unanswered. Like they can explore that. That would be a cool little thing. How did she and Liambo get screwed? Like we never saw the whole aspect of him being taken. There's a lot of story you can do there to lead up to like Mystic Force.
I agree with that. And hopefully we get stuff like this from either us, if we ever get to work at Boom Studios, or Hasbro, or other fans who want to take up the mantle. I just hope that we get stuff like this in the near future.
Yeah, because the Boom comics can really explore a lot of little details like that. And like how does like what does Dr. K do post Beast Morphers? Because she clearly knows about the dimensions. Like, what is her involvement from post Beast Morphers? Because she, and then of course, like from what we've seen from all the dimensional travel, because between like Wes, like how did they build the device that travels between dimensions? Like, what is up with like Wes in the present? Does he go to the future? Like all these, like you can build from those little bits to bigger bits, because one leads to there. Like what's been going on at Time Force, like what's been going on with Rancic. Like there's so many little stories that you continue into a small arc that I would love to see. And that's what I think what Once and Always, that aspect of Once and Always could always be. If you wanted to be like, let's bring back a past season and let's continue a specific story that was just like what we can do, that was based off what at the ending, like what are, like, say for example, like Lost Galaxy, they made an anniversary of Lost Galaxy, and we find out that, I don't know, maybe Maya, Kendricks, Kai, everyone has been trying to revive the dead Galactabeasts that were lost in the final fight. Something like that. Maybe we would find out more of the background of the Quasar Sabers, because we know the Quasar Sabers came from Miranoi, but who made them? What made them? Were they made from the morphing grid? Because we really don't know how they work with it. So, like, what made them? Did the Morphing Masters originally make them? There's, like, a lot of unanswered questions.
And that's pretty much sums up, like, our dream project, is filling in gaps without making it seem super nerdy, I guess. Piece. Yeah, fluff piece. Because
I don't want it to be like overbearing to people who've never seen it, but like you need to build off where we left off.
Yeah, if we were in doing stuff like this, I wouldn't want to get to the point where Rich Evans of Red Letter Media would be like, "You can't be fucking serious! I mean, Jesus fucking Christ, is every fucking detail in the goddamn Star Wars?" Before he gets cut off.
I know there's a point where it's like, okay, there's too much information that even a hardcore fan would get annoyed about. It's just like, why are we the worst case scenario is if someone did an anniversary where they're literally referencing like Billy, what he was studying in that particular episode. That's where you cross the line. It's just like, you don't need references for every little detail. You want to continue a story, but you have to have a balance of it being cool, but also you have to be like, yeah, 5-year-old kids watch this too. I don't want them to be completely lost.
Yeah, and I do hope that if we get more stuff like this, in Once and Always style, like continuations, that they make a good balance and they don't compromise stuff badly. Which we don't know what things are going to be like for Hasbro past the hiatus or hiatus when they come back.
Yeah.
I just hope that A, they get better merchandise done, and B, the reboot's good, and C, we get good continuations as well. That's all I want.
Although, I would honestly say one easy way they can help, get the reboot off the ground really easily. Why don't you go make a Time Force sequel? Special movie for them. I think that would be like the easiest thing for old fans to be like, oh my god, they're going to bring back the season that everyone likes. If you do that, I think that, and you do it right, and it's not like some like crap, and I think that would really help to, like, we're going to continue the old stuff along with the new stuff, so we can have the universes still be with each other. It would kind of be like if Hasbro said, let's continue Beast Wars while we make a new season at the same time. It would be original generations whatever story, but then continue Beast Wars' story. It would be something like that. Keep something old with the new.
Yeah, I believe that we saw stuff like that back then. The 2004 Batman show continuing while Kevin Conroy's DCAU Batman was with Justice League.
Yes,
I like
yes.
that. I like that when I was younger.
Yeah, because it's like, when you have Kevin Conroy, the Batman, okay, we're in the Batman animated series universe. This is this place. We know what's going on. We know what to expect. And then you could still make a whole bunch of different Batman shows or a completely different franchise of something else, but we still have that. So it's just like, I think it works perfect. You have old and new.
And there's also the voice of Rino Romano, aka Spider-Man, aka original voice of Darian Shields / Tuxedo Mask.
Yes.
And also the voice of some narrator from Curious George, or if he was a man for the other life. I don't remember, but point is, you can do old and new at the same time, Hasbro. Please do so.
Yeah. I think when they came up with the concept of Once and Always, I was worried because it was like, oh no, they have these writers, which, again, fine, I'm not complaining about the writers, but it's just like, do you know everything about the old seasons? Because you have to watch a lot of stuff. And then the hardest thing I was really worrying about is like, are they going to feel like the characters they were? That was the thing that I worried the most, because a lot of times when you bring back an old character or old show and you have completely new people writing it, especially if they're very young, they usually don't sound the way they were. And it's very noticeable in a lot of properties and that's what hurts a property in general. It's like, they're not speaking the way they're supposed to be speaking. They're speaking like if they were speaking today. And I'm like, that's not how it would be. So, but luckily they, for the most part, Once and Always was good. It has its caveats. Nothing is ever perfect, but it's a good start. Keep it going. Don't give up on it.
Yes, that's all we want to hear from here, Hasbro. Like, never give up, and other such inspirational things that we probably heard from John Cena.
Now I'm just picturing Danny over that cliff edge.
But that should do it for this video. There's a lot that we hope to see in the future, and whatever we get, I just hope they succeed in it.
Yeah.
And also, I want to give you a very special thanks for joining me in this channel, Archer. It's been an honor to work with. It's been an honor to work with a bigger profile in the Ranger community, especially as someone that has done great videos in the past and still is to this day.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. I do the videos because PR is just something I always enjoyed, and I just like analyzing it from a more deeper level, because at the end of the day, it's a kid show. Obviously, it's always going to be a kid show, but to me, it doesn't have, just because it's a kid show doesn't mean it has to suck. It can always be good. It could be better. There's different levels to it. When I see writers that care about a property, and I don't mean they know everything about the property and they know this little detail, like they know that this Spider-Man costume has this belt or whatever. It's like, no, that's superficial detail. I mean, where it's just like, I love this property, I want to add to it, here's something new, but it works with the old, and they're genuine, and it's not just they're saying it to get people to come back. that's what I appreciate the most from PR, because in most cases that's what they do. Like, PR, I think, is a very flexible series that can do so many different things, and I think that's what ultimately kept it alive, because we had our corny, we have our serious. There's always something there for people to enjoy. I mean, for God's sakes, we had a hamster mentor character. I don't think anything else has done something like that.
Shout outs to our hamster mentor for Ninja Storm.
I think that's what people love. It's like, yeah, PR can be absurd, but the absurd can work.
Yes. And no matter what we get in the future, we know for a fact that there'll always be a team of spandex heroes to keep others entertained, one way
Mm-hmm.
or another.
Mm-hmm.
May the power live on with us all.